time is now 3:03. Because we value your time and we know there is so much that we want to share and discussions we want to engage in, as well as critical thinking in how to expound opportunities for our students across all abilities to access such empowering platforms and opportunities, I think we will start today's Power Hour. So I want to thank everyone that has joined us today. On behalf of Transition Maine, my name is Titus O'Rourke, and I welcome you to our Tuesday Transition Power Hour. We are thrilled to welcome today Josh Bauer and the Education and Outreach Director from the Center for Wildlife, along with the Outreach Coordinator Bob Dale and our special guest ambassador to today's Power Hour focused on New England wildlife. Together, we will delve into how to bring the wonders of nature into the classroom for our students across the state. Our aim today is to dispel common myths about outdoor education while sharing resources and opportunities that foster a sense of belonging in nature for all our scholars throughout Maine. So understanding our interconnectedness with the natural world is a crucial element for our scholars that represents a significant area of growth, both inside and outside the classroom. By examining nature's impact on the emotional wellness and development, we can ignite a passion for the incredible offerings of our beautiful state. So we encourage you to join us for these transformative opportunities and learnings presented today by the Center for Wildlife. Welcome, Josh. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. No, it's right. It's great to be here, and thank you very much, Titus, for offering us today to chat with so many awesome people. I've already had a little look in the I was about to say the comment section, like we're live on YouTube right now, but I had a look in the comment spot, and it's amazing to see so many people from different backgrounds all sharing that common goal, ultimately wanting to realize and explore the emotional wellness that nature is offering. And today we're going to look at what that looks like in a group setting, but also individuals, and seeing what stories that we've encouraged and encountered in the past that really do let us know that what we're doing makes a big difference. And it's amazing to help spread that environmental education. So before we start, a little rundown of myself, and I'll let Bob introduce himself as well. My name is Josh Bauer. I am the Education Outreach Director here. My background, my history, I guess, if we were to sum it up, is in education, from teaching pre-K all the way through to teenagers and adults. I've always enjoyed education and teaching people and imparting the stuff that I find fun. And for me, that is all about the outdoors and wildlife, and also having held a couple of positions working with a lot of different demographics of people with different experiences and backgrounds in the past, as well as a lot of varying abilities, which is amazing because now I get to bring that all together in a package which can really benefit all of these people across the state of Maine. And I'll hand over to Bob so he can give a quick rundown on himself as well.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Dale. I'm the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator here at Center for Wildlife. I coordinate the education team under Josh's direction. To give a little idea of the history and how I ended up here at Center for Wildlife, I was an outdoor guide for years, primarily water sport eco guiding for years. Had a short little stint educating adults with disabilities, doing nature immersion with adults with disabilities here in the state of Maine, before coming into my role as the marketing and outreach coordinator here at the center. My job here at the center is a beautiful accumulation of all my previous work experience, getting people out in the outdoors, and combining that with my intense passion for wildlife, and working with wildlife and conserving natural spaces and wildlife. So really, really exciting organization to be working with. Really excited to sort of talk about all of the different facets of our organization, how we kind of work that into our education mission here at the center, and just really excited to be here with all of you. And you might see on our screen there, we have a third educator joining us today. We're not going to give away too much until we get to that portion of the presentation. Again, not to ruin anything for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. So who are we and what do we do? I think the baseline is to figure out exactly for all of us sat here where we're from. You might have heard Center for Wildlife before. You might have even seen us in passing on some media things on the TV or even on social media. But we have a mission that extends to educating our community, wildlife ecology, human impacts on wildlife and critical ecosystems. We want to promote stewardship in a region facing these intense pressure from development. But our education and outreach programs offer opportunities for Project Wild educators, live animal ambassadors, hands-on materials, and to really foster that natural connection between people and wildlife and inspire that conservationalist within. And I think drawing more and more people into our world and showing them that it is for everybody. There isn't a one size fits all. And there is certainly, in my mind, there shouldn't be anybody who faces any barriers to the outdoors. So throughout our kind of chat today, we're looking at how we can break those barriers down or how we can just completely remove them so they're not there in the first place, right? That is ideally what we want to make happen. So we've got an exciting team of live, non-releasable wildlife ambassadors that are trained to work with us on presentation to audiences, but also to help foster that connection with the outdoors and us personally. You will always remember a time where you had an opportunity to bond with an animal, even looking into their eyes, and that resonates with everyone. Not just people of one particular background or experience. So the topic of today's discussion is based around the emotional wellness that nature offers. And I think we're all sat here today because we know that there is value in that, and we have probably experienced that individually in some way, shape, or form in the past. I certainly know I have. And spending time in nature, we know, can improve our emotional wellness by promoting positive emotions, reducing negative thoughts, and helping people feel calmer and more focused. But what does it offer us in more detail and how? Now, it's easy to say that, oh, you go into the woods, you instantly feel a bit more zen, all your cares are going to float away. Now, on paper, yes, you could write that, but ultimately we know that that is not the case for everybody, right? So there are a lot more opportunities that we see in nature and in the outdoors. And this is a little breakdown of it. Now, this isn't the be all and end all. And I'm sure people have their own stories as well of how they've connected with wildlife and how they might have had moments that have really kind of truly saved them and helped them come back to finding out a bit more about themselves or just feeling like they belong more. So positive emotions. Nature can generate feelings of joy, creativity, and calmness. Reduce negative thoughts, lower anxiety and depression, improve concentration, increased energy, and reduce symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. Now, feel free, and this is where we can all kind of join in the little chat as well. If anybody has been out in nature recently, and when I mean recently, I mean within the last month. Because to some people, going out once a year for their annual trip to the outdoors is enough for their nature exposure and to feel like they've topped up all their jars. However, we're going to talk about today why you need to be out there as much as possible or how to involve that as much as possible to help with that. So please feel free to chuck down in the chat any recent experiences that you've had in the outdoors that have helped with any of those things, right, that we see in front of us. If anybody is more willing to unmute themselves and have a little discussion on that, I'd love to hear what that has done for you in the past. And I can start. I can definitely start us off because I know with myself, especially with, I know it's that we work with wildlife every day, so we get to hang around and see them in their environments. But ultimately, I like to find time to reflect, especially before I go home sometimes and I open the door and it is all systems go from the toddler running at 300 miles an hour at me. And I find a 10-minute kind of walk around in the woods really does help lower anxiety. I'm certainly not anxious about going home, but it definitely balances me out before I go back into the house and finding that increased energy to spend time with my little one, especially when we combine that in the backyard going out and playing. So I can see here that we've got I'm out daily, riding my horse daily, caring for livestock, running my woodland program, daily hikes. Connie, that's amazing. I think that that is definitely a secret to staying connected with nature. And we're going to come back to talk about that in a couple of moments. Titus, I know, don't make me jealous with where you were recently. You were able to hike on Table Mountain down in Cape Town in South Africa. And Angela, I can see here, hike with my family through the woods in our backyards. We collect samples from the stream and look for interesting things under the microscope, and we didn't find much. But that's okay, because that whole process of going in, dipping, getting your hands in the water, and all of these experiences that you are doing for yourself right now. And there is a reason, and we're going to absolutely come back to these. Ice skating, sledding, hiking in the backyard, and playing in the snow with my toddler. 100%. I took my toddler out in the snow for the first time last week, and she had a great time pulling her penguin toy around on a sled. And it was new precipitation that she hasn't been around before. And she was able to, that hands-on experiential stuff. All right. And I walked on the beach yesterday for 10 minutes. It reduced my anxiety and gave me some peace. I live in the woods. Even the front of my driveway is considered middle of nowhere. Craig, you're making me jealous, mate. That is ideal. I think what we take for granted in the state of Maine is that everywhere is considered pretty much rural, which is really interesting, right? We are a very rural state in that sense. So taking my dogs for walks on the beach helps me feel more connected to nature, and my dog, 100%. You can see, if any of you have got any animals that you do take in the outdoors, what benefits it has for them. You have listed all the benefits right here that you do for you. So why aren't we doing this for our friends in the classroom? Or why aren't we doing this as much as we should with people who don't have these opportunities? Because we know amongst ourselves right now, we've just listed all the fun stuff that we do. And that is super cool. So we know how to be outside, right? And I think part of this is understanding that the non-tangibles, so the stuff that you're not immediately seeing, is happening internally. That walking on the beach and listening to the waves kind of lap against the shore, that's a soothing motion, that's calming, that's reducing anxiety. Curiosity, Carla, ice skating, sledding, hiking, and playing in the snow with your toddler, like they're learning from you right there. Whether or not some people want to think that learning through play is like the way forward, but I think learning through play is invaluable, and learning through experiential hands-on stuff. Collecting samples, absolutely. Now, Angela, if you don't mind me asking a little bit on that, like, did you start that around collecting samples, or was that something that was led then by who you had with you, with your family? And if we're no, kids asked to. Great. And that is exactly it. And I'll slip you the money later for answering my question correctly. But the interesting thing there is that 6 and 9 years old, exactly. So they are finding that for themselves when they're out in nature, just by walking around. And sometimes the biggest step is just stepping out that front door. All right. So we can see here now what benefits that this has, what holistic approach we're getting just from being outside. And that's not even taking into consideration the stuff that people like your children are wanting to learn then. This is all happening in the background, and their natural curiosity and their natural wonder is being amplified. And when we're doing that, we're creating our sense of want, our sense of needs, and identifying to us our personalized experience, right? So by exposing people to this, we're allowing them to create their own impressions and their own experiences outdoors. And they're never going to forget that, by the way, Angela. They're always going to remember being outside and doing that. I can count on probably on one hand, the lessons I learned or I remember being taught to me with dating myself with this, but chalk on a blackboard. All right. But I can guarantee you the stuff that I did firsthand experiential, that I was actually invited and asked for my input in, I still carry through to this day. And this is why I'm doing this right now. So if we have a look at our next slide, I'm also conscious of time to make sure we got time at the end for Q&A as well. So what is currently done? And I have to have a hard think about this, because having experienced this in the past and seeing it still in action, it can be a bit frustrating for the individuals involved in this, and sometimes the teaching staff as well, right? So with environmental education and outdoor experiences varying much from location to location, let's look at what's commonly done. Because what we found is that with a study of teachers and professionals who work with adults and demographics of all ages, is that it really comes down to the individual's experiences. So what we do with the Center for Wildlife is we hope to be able to build a robust enough program or experiences that people feel comfortable taking that to new levels. So at the moment, the common thing that we see in environmental education, or even with our groups coming in, we see a lot of trail walks. We see a lot of visits to nature centers and having external organizations like ourselves come into the classrooms. Now, we love coming into the classrooms. We love coming into educational settings and teaching, but we also love organic teaching opportunities in the wild. And I say in the wild, outdoors, all right? And these experiences are amazing for kickstarting that wonder, that curiosity, and further fueling that passion that your students may have. However, unfortunately, our friends with varying needs are often overlooked or spoken for when it comes to their involvement in the outdoors. And that is something that I personally, it hurts on a couple of different levels. Having access or just assuming that everybody is lumped in with the same experience is far from what we do as individuals on our day-to-day lives. And it's far from what we as a society should be doing. There is not one size fits all, right? We know that. Just from looking at your experiences that you've curated for yourselves, they're all different. They're not just going out and walking a trail, going 20 minutes, going, okay, that's 20 minutes of walking, let's turn around. There is so much more that can be done even in that moment. So how do we go from that to kind of self-directed, self-guided involvement in the outdoors? And there are ways that we can build up levels to that. Now, I'm not saying that going for walks together in the outdoors should be completely disregarded. There is moments for bonding amongst that. However, I think learning some questions and techniques and ways to involve and tease out some of those questions can start those organic conversations then when you're doing that. And it feels like you belong more because you're noticing more, you're taking respect, you're taking pride. So a couple of questions that I like to ask when a group of us are out on the trails are, what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? Kind of starting with those senses, grounding ourselves in the location that we're at, taking stock of where we are. And that is a really good way to kind of get everybody on that page to begin with. But ultimately, I'm going to click on the screen so it moves otherwise. How do we involve? And examples on decision making. Now, once again, I may be preaching to the choir with some of us here in this situation. However, I do think it is important that the most basic one is asking how you want your experience in the outdoor to look like. What are your concerns? What are your worries about being outside? Like, what can we talk about beforehand to make you feel like you belong even before you get there? Because unfortunately, if there are those preconceptions and negative preconceptions of what is in the woods, what your past experiences have been, you're going to gatekeep yourself as well to a certain degree. And knowing that the opportunity is there for you to say, no, I belong, and this is for me, and I have as much right to be in there as you do. That is 100% what we want. And we want that self-advocacy to start with us as well. So asking is giving that power. And no time is ever wasted on someone by asking them what they want. Absolutely not. You can also provide options, because sometimes when you are saying what you want, I get overwhelmed. It's like being asked what I want for dinner. I don't know. I'd love food. In what form, I don't know right now. I need to process this a bit. But if someone came up to me and said, right, okay, we got some burgers, we got some pizza, and we got some, some tacos, I could definitely come up with an option there that I have chosen for myself, but is within that realm of possibility. So providing those opportunities for, maybe our friends, or maybe someone who's more interested in learning about the animals that are out there, the wildlife that are out there, or someone is super interested in how they create the ordnance survey maps by going out into the woods and finding these different areas. Like, those are all things that we can look at and involve people in. But we're never going to know what people want to learn about unless we're asking. And we do that here for our staff and our teachers. We host a couple of free days throughout the year, and I'm happy to share that with Titus so you can all come along to those. And the first half of that session is talking amongst ourselves, is what are the barriers that we've put in for ourselves that stop us going out there, and ask, what do we need to make those changes? When is also a question. Like, when do we decide to involve someone in their own learning? I mean, whenever you can and as often as you can. And I try and draw these parallels because, once again, in our own lives, if we have that element of choice taken away, it diminishes what choices we have left anyway, and it makes the ones kind of feel very, very basic. So providing those opportunities for those for people to make those decisions as often as possible. And why? We've seen the benefits listed. Providing avenues for people to explore because of their own wants. And we love to work with people to curate their own experiences and opportunities. Yes, if you were to go onto the Center for Wildlife website, you could see our programs that we have to offer, and they're great because they offer experiences and kind of immersion in all aspects of environmental education from the areas that we've thought of. Now, once again, that doesn't mean to say that we've covered everybody's wants and needs, which is why we like to have that opportunity to really build those unique opportunities with education systems, with staff like yourselves, providing personalized experiences that really do involve people in the outdoors, and people leave feeling like they belong. People leave feeling like they want to talk about what they learned today. People leave feeling like they want to go back into the outdoors and they have equity in it. Once you have that buy-in and they feel in almost enchanted, let's be honest, when you're in the woods and you have those moments, I like to call them like Snow White moments, when you're walking in the woods and you got the animals kind of tweeting in the trees, and then like a deer might walk in front of you because you've been nice and quiet. Like, those are the moments that really kind of drive home that we belong there. And we, as in all of us. There shouldn't be a demographic or a group of people that hold a certain power over the outdoors. Now, the next part of our presentation is about who we share the outdoors with and why it is important that we have these opportunities for individuals to go. So I am going to sit back and enjoy this part. And I will hand over to our very talented tag team duo of Bob and Lucy.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, so we are obviously going to talk a little bit here about some of the unique opportunities that we have at Center for Wildlife for connecting people with nature, with the outdoors. Again, this is pretty unique to our organization. I see we do have some of our friends from the Children's Museum Theater of Maine who also have some resident animals there. So while we are meeting our special guest here, I do want to talk about some ways that we have pulled out some larger themes of education and connection with the natural world, particularly around connecting people and sort of customizing experiences for people based off of some of their needs and wants. But let's do that without any further ado here. I know it is really fun to listen and see Josh and I talking, but most importantly, here at Center for Wildlife, we have the unique pleasure of being able to educate with and connect people with wildlife via some of our resident ambassador animal friends here. Just have to wake our friend up from her little nap that she's taking. I don't step up. Come on. There we go. Good job. So everyone, this is Lucy, the Eastern Screech Owl. She is one of our resident ambassadors here at Center for Wildlife. So not only do we do hands-on wildlife rehabilitation with animals that we were hoping to release back out to the wild, but we have the pleasure through our education team of working with non-releasable resident animals like Lucy here. So all of our ambassador animals are all animals that unfortunately cannot be released back out to the wild. The primary reasons that our animals are non-releasable are either due to permanent physical injury, or in Lucy's case here, being what we call imprinted on humans. So that means having been taken from the wild, being raised in captivity, and habituated with human contact to the point where they cannot survive in the wild. So that's Lucy's case. Lucy does not have any physical disabilities. She was taken from the wild as a juvenile by some well-meaning folks, thinking they were doing the best for Lucy and her siblings, and they were hand feeding and caring for Lucy and her siblings in their home before taking them to a facility, a professional facility like ours for care. In that time, that was those really early developmental stages for Lucy and her siblings. And in that time that those folks had Lucy and her siblings at home, they fully imprinted on humans. They never developed any of those really important survival skills and species awareness that they would need. And most importantly, didn't develop any predator awareness, which is why Lucy here is such a great educational ambassador for us. We humans should be big, scary predators to these animals, particularly a small owl like Lucy. She does not have any of that predator awareness whatsoever, making her very, very not stressed out by large groups, being in large settings. She does particularly thrive in small group settings. But again, she's one of our ambassadors that we can take out in front of really large groups. So again, this ability to be able to educate with these ambassador animals, pretty unique to our organization, but there are a lot of incredible connections that we're able to make with these resident ambassador animals that are some lessons that a lot of other organizations can take away. Lucy here, she's one of our most stoic ambassador animals here at the center. So Lucy is one of our ambassadors that is actually able to make really incredibly deep connections with people of all shapes and sizes, of different abilities. And she is one of our friends that we do a lot of unique and customized programming with. So anecdotally, some of the programs that Lucy has done with our education team relatively recently that have been really great ways to sort of offer some alternative connections with wildlife, with nature. Lucy and I attended a program at a local library relatively recently, and I think this is a great example of kind of giving kids initiative and choice, where Lucy and I set up in a quiet room in one of the local libraries here in Southern Maine and allowed kids to come in supervised with myself, but just to have quiet time in a room with Lucy. We sort of framed it around coming in and doing story time with Lucy, to have kids who are struggling with talking in front of groups or struggling with anxiety to come into the room with Lucy and read stories to Lucy. This was a really incredible program, and was really awesome to see some parents bring their kids in who were really shut down, even being extremely nervous, just saying hi to me at the door the second they came in, and were able to sit quietly with Lucy, getting to watch some of those kids just totally open up, seeing some of the kids open their books and read some of their favorite stories to Lucy was a really beautiful example of kids making the initiative decision of deciding how they wanted to spend their time with Lucy, particularly for the kids that were reading to Lucy, deciding what books that they were going to read to Lucy. It was a really cool example of kids making some initiative, making some choices for themselves, and allowing a really nice, comfortable, quiet, safe space for these kids to totally open up. By the end, as I would step back in, as our next group would come in, we had some kids again that were too nervous to even say hello to me at the door. By the end of our session with Lucy, were telling me how much they love Lucy, that time that they saw an owl or encountered some wildlife in their backyard. So the ability for our ambassador animals, obviously it's a pretty unique, special opportunity to get to encounter an animal this close in person. To see what that brings out particularly in the children that we work with, that are struggling with anxiety or depression, is a really special opportunity here at the center. We've had an incredible amount and many, many examples of this, of being able to give kids just some quiet, safe space with our animals to be able to open up and creating that space for them. So one thing that we do with a lot of our programming here at the center, and one thing that we do particularly with our group programming, working with kids with very large varying needs, is creating those small little breakout, quieter spaces. It is something that I have seen work incredibly well for some kids that may get overstimulated, kids that are struggling with anxiety in the group settings, to create some of that separate space. One thing that we do a lot of here at the center, particularly take our summer camp, for example. As we're going through summer camp, we have kids working on nature journaling throughout the entirety of summer camp, so that when we are in these larger group settings, if kids do feel, or if we are registering that kids need to step away, allowing the kids to have something that they're consistently working on, like those nature journals, allows us to step in as educators and say, hey, do you need to step away for 5 minutes? Let's go work on our nature journals. Let's go take a walk around, and go pay Lucy the screech owl a visit. To be able to step away from the larger group and have the ability to create some of those spaces, to give the kids the initiative as well, to not only have the ability to have kids step away from a larger group, but to give them that decision-making processes of, hey, do you want to work on your nature journal? Or do you want to take a quiet walk with me in the woods? Do you want to go see the animals? Is something that we have seen create an incredible amount of value. And then also having that choice and that initiative for kids is a really incredible opportunity, and really has shown to be empowering for kids. The empowerment is something that is really, really cool to see, particularly with the connections with our animals. We're lucky to have a lot of small ambassador animals here at the center that have a lot of personality, which is a pretty good segue, I think, Josh, for us to jump over to our next slide. I can keep Lucy on my glove while we're talking about this next slide here, give you guys some more opportunity to say hi to Lucy here. So speaking of small animals with big personalities, Lucy is one of them. But another of our ambassadors we have here at Center for Wildlife is a little Merlin falcon named Maeve. I always joke that Maeve, if we were to equate her to other species, Maeve would be like the Chihuahua of the bird world. It's a lot of personality packed into a really small bird. But Maeve, and the reason I wanted to talk about Maeve is to talk about a really cool story that we've had over the past couple of years here at Center for Wildlife, and a great example of creating nice, quiet, safe space for kids that has resulted in a pretty incredible transformation. So a couple of years back, we just had the pleasure of connecting with a mom and daughter who simply just decided to come visit our nature center and get involved with some of our programming. Melissa is mom and Ace is her daughter. After a few visits to our nature center and some connections with our ambassador animals, in particular our Merlin falcon Maeve, Melissa began opening up about Ace's story to us. So Ace is Melissa's daughter. She was 11 years old. And at the time, Melissa was bringing Ace around to both just visit our nature center and attend our programming. Ace had gone 107 days out of the classroom after dealing with really high anxiety and panic attacks. So Melissa was seeking alternate learning opportunities for Ace. Luckily, we were incredibly lucky to be that space that Melissa was able to discover for Ace. So both just visiting through our nature center and then connecting with our ambassador animals, in particular Maeve. So you can see this quote that Melissa offered up to us, saying that AC's connection with Maeve, our Merlin Falcon here at the center, and the center saved her life in the depths of her crisis. And she says she'll always be in our debt. And the really big takeaway here that Melissa added to this quote is that curiosity saves. So in our nature center, we have our space set up with a lot of traditional, interpretation, learning examples of the ambassador animals. But we have a lot of this space set up as just open, free play. Again, an example of giving kids the initiative of choosing to play with certain exhibits and interact with certain exhibits. Our outdoor ambassador village is set up in a way where you can freely walk around the outdoor spaces and freely visit with the ambassadors while you're visiting the nature center. And just by setting up that environment and Melissa bringing Ace just to our campus and experiencing that environment without any of us really guiding them through initially, that is what opened up the door to Melissa continuously bringing Ace by and connecting with both our ambassadors, connecting with Maeve extremely deeply. Melissa actually shared a photo of Ace's bedroom door with a little printout photo of Maeve on her door. And Josh, I believe you mentioned that her wake up alarm is Merlin Falcon call that she got to learn.
Yeah, every morning there's this high screeching, piercing noise coming from her bedroom, according to her mum, and she refuses to get up if there isn't a Merlin Falcon call. So,
yeah. So that Ace's story is kind of a great example of us, very strategically sort of just setting up a space to allow for that children's initiative to spark that curiosity. And then based off of that curiosity that was sparked just through a passive visit to our campus, we were able to sort of clock Ace's connection with Maeve and customize those experiences for her so that when Ace was visiting us, we could get Maeve out of her enclosure or just take a little walk through the woods with Ace. And again, hearing that literally saved someone's lives was a pretty incredible feedback and something that we will definitely take with us and take some of those lessons into any and all of the educational opportunities that we have here at the center. So Josh, unless I'm forgetting anything, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
absolutely. No, thank you. I think it's really cool, as Bob said, to see those connections that people can build. And, another little thing that we're going to touch on before we open up the floor to some Q&A is talking about the Monarch School over in New Hampshire that I also, we, Center for Wildlife work with. If there's some people here that aren't familiar with the Monarch School over in New Hampshire, they're amazing. They're set up to support students from the age of, I believe, 5 through 21 with varying needs. And they are all set up to personalize those lessons as well and make sure that those experiences are curated for those individuals. So we work directly with the staff and the students at the Monarch School to kind of build the programs around what their curiosity is, the real wants from the students that are in attendance. Being able to sit down and chat with the students and get their input on their own learning makes a big difference to them. The engagement and the enthusiasm during those sessions are always a lot more, especially when the students have a little inkling about what's coming up and they're excited because they're the ones who chose it, right? So the programs are for all ages and they're held in a space where people are free to ask questions and get close to the ambassadors. Because once again, finding opportunities for people to feel like they have that connection. Whereas the Monarch School, I will get that, I believe, Connie, it is over in Manchester way. Let me just double confirm that for you. And you probably put your hands up like that because why am I only just hearing about this now, right? So we'll have
from Manchester, so
right. Sorry, they're in Rochester.
Oh, Rochester. Okay.
Yes, my apologies. So it was a Chester, and I got it wrong because I'm only 4 years into the area. But the fun thing is that having educational facilities like this as well that see the value in that individualized, personalized experiences, and also creating curated group experiences based off what our students want to know. Then we can absolutely kind of like make sure that people are leaving those with questions answered, eyes bright, and minds full of questions, which is super cool. So Titus is going to be popping off, but I will be making sure that I send out some of our links after this as well. So we'll share a PDF of the presentation with them tomorrow. So I will be sending all of this through as well so we can refer to it. But seeing our ambassadors and hearing our stories are where the biggest connections happen. I think Bob just kind of reiterated that and really kind of focused in on our ambassadors have varying needs and they have different experiences. One of the amazing things that we get to do is, as Bob said, we build those connections. All of our animals are here living with us in sanctuary because they need support. And that's okay. We all need support in some way, shape, or form in our own lives. So how do we ensure that that is put across to our friends that we're now working with and seeing them notice themselves in some of these animal ambassadors or join in with some of those discussions on, you know, like one or two of our ambassadors have some wing mobility. So being able to identify with, like, sounds silly, but like, especially I had some rotator cuff issues not too long ago. I could move my arm. And then like it was instantly just kind of standing there with my arm like that, looking at another animal that's in that situation. It really does create that closeness and foster that connection. An example that isn't listed here, but one that we did, and was we had a request for a video actually to be sent to a young man who was about to undergo some surgery. And we did a video. I did a video with our porcupine, actually, and we were talking about how both myself and our porcupine had to go through some different procedures growing up and everything like that, and finding that connection and finding those commonalities and being like, look, you're going through something, but it's okay. You can come out stronger from it, and you can come out with a brighter, kind of brighter outlook, like myself and our porcupine friend did. And we will never turn down opportunities to kind of reiterate that with people. We want people to feel valued, feel respected, and feel like they belong. Ultimately, that's all any of us want, right? Is to be able to walk into an environment or a setting and not feel like we're standing out or people are staring at us. And nature is one of those locations that you really can do that to the extent that you feel pride and ownership in the areas that you are. Now, I will make sure that we do have some question time because, believe it or not, we've only got about 15 minutes left. And I do want to open this floor up to anybody that might have any questions, even if it's about how we may customize some of our programming, some of the ambassadors that we work with, or some other examples of programming that we've done inside a classroom or outside the classroom, or if there are any specific focus areas that you'd like to pick our brains on, now is the time. So if you don't feel like unmuting yourself and you want to type the question into the chat bubble, you're more than welcome to. I will just keep myself quiet for a few minutes and let anybody take the floor who would like to.
Hello.
Hello, Connie.
Hi, I just have a quick question. So I have an outdoor program. I have about 60 acres behind me with
Wow.
streams and a pond, a beaver pond, and there's otters and all kinds of things. I don't have, other than regular livestock like goats and chickens and dogs, I don't have much in the way of ambassadors. So is it important, do you think it's important to have people come in with these animal ambassadors to talk with the kids and kind of give
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I remember growing up, and the reason that I do this now, was because someone did come into my schools and someone was coming in and talking about these animals. And as Bob said, once you're up close and eye to eye or nose to beak, I guess, you really do develop a bit more of that empathy for the outdoors and that connection. Now, we travel with our ambassadors. We do have a great ambassadorial team, and we can travel around the state, even over into New Hampshire. But we also can do options on Zoom as well. So we can do things like this where we have an animal with us and we can talk directly. The other options is that, someone like myself or Bob or Cassidy or Quinn, our education team, can come to a location or meet you at a location and help guide that curiosity. And it can be as formal or as informal as you'd like. Now, it could be like we're coming up with a scavenger hunt, and actually the scavenger hunt is teaching in stealth mode. By the end of it, they're not going to realize what they've learned, but they're going to know they've had a great time. But also then being more familiar and working with the staff, so you feel comfortable out in the woods being able to go, oh, yes, that's a white pine, that's a pitch pine, and this is how we tell them apart. Because we love everybody to be able to advocate for their own outdoor space, right? And we're here as a resource, and we're here to build on those experiences for you and your students, or also your program participants. So I think it's important for them to have that connection and to see that in person, whether or not that is at a location at your spot or even down at a local nature center or sanctuary. I think it's definitely a moment that will kickstart a couple of those younger ones into what they might want to do when they're older, or what they might want to kind of focus their learning on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was a great question. You've come to visit our K classrooms a couple of times, yeah, and students are always so engaged. Absolutely. So the extension activities, Carla, that is brilliant, because that was going to be something that we're introducing actually this year as follow-ups. So I think Carla hit the nail on the head there. So having resources available, keeping that conversation going after the fact is huge, because otherwise we're seen as a gimmick, right? And we don't want the outdoors to be seen as something you do once a month that's got special planning based around it. It should be something that's organic and people are excited to do. So by engaging in some follow-up work, that you can keep those students, you can keep them engaged and keep them questioning those things after. So we're very lucky to have Cassidy Beach on our team, who is our schools and library lead, who is working very diligently on providing extension activities and also extra follow-up visits and things like that for schools and classes. So an example of that might be, in the fall, if you've booked maybe our BAT program, all right, we can send out a sheet that you do with your class the week before, or a couple of your students, or a small focus group, and you talk about preconceptions, you talk about what you think of bats, what you know about them. We come in, we do our little session on them, and I can promise you will fall in love with both of them. After that, then we can send that same sheet back out, and then we can go through those questions again. And it's a great comparison from having not a lot of background and information on something to then learning about something and how that might have changed your outlook. Now, you might still have people who are just like, after that, bats is still not for me, and that's fine. But hopefully we've dispelled some of those common misconceptions and myths around animals like that. The other really fun thing as well is tangibles from those animals. So owl pellets. I think the cool thing about our owls is that we can guarantee, for the most part with 90% accuracy, that each pellet is going to have something in it because we fed them the day before. So being able to see what that has, or having a follow-up extension that you do with your group by taking them outside. So you don't have to come up with the plan itself, but the extension plan is all written down. So we might have talked about habitats in New England the last time we visited, or an adaptation. So now you can take a couple of kids outside, or your class, and try and spot some adaptations in the wild. Do they remember what those adaptations are? Because that's the cool thing that we have as humans, and wildlife has as well. We can always adapt to a situation that we're put in by choice or by circumstance. And letting people know that they can control their own circumstance and choice, just like nature does, is also super empowering. That's a great question. Thank you, Carla. And we're happy to chat as well with people. Part of the professional development that we offer here at the Center for Wildlife is Project Wild training. Now that is Project Wild for the state of Maine, but that's Growing Up Wild with a focus on the little ones. Project Wild, which is like the overall project. Then we have some focuses on Below Zero, which is activities and outdoor stuff for the wintertime. So all of those are on our website, and we offer those trainings here with myself. And you leave with your book, you leave with your certificate, and it's got everything you need to take the outdoors in your stride as well, which is super cool. Yes, Annika, Caroline, thank you for raising your hand. That's cool. I didn't realize it had that feature. That's awesome. Feel free.
Hello. So at the Children's Museum and Theater, we have a few ambassador animals, most of which are turtles.
Yep.
So we do a lot of programming around turtles. And I have two questions. The first is typically when like the kids get so excited about turtles that sometimes they'll be like, oh, I want a turtle. How can I get a turtle? What turtles are good to have? And of course, the reason that we have some of our ambassador animal turtles are because they were bought as pets, with the owners not realizing how intense the care process was and how long they lived for. I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how to talk to families about that.
Yeah, Bob.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah, I'll tag you in. You got it.
So yeah, this is something particularly around turtles that I'm super passionate about. I'm a reptile keeper at home. The last reptile I will ever keep at home is a turtle. Same thing we run into with Lucy. You know, she's an imprinted owl that was taken from the wild. Those folks were well-meaning folks, but the number one feedback we get on a program with Lucy is, oh my God, she's so cute. Can I touch her? You immediately see those gears turning of people like getting into that mind frame of, can I also have an owl? So that is something that we are really serious about. One of the ways that we just anecdotally mitigate that is by educating people around our physical interactions with animals. We are very mindful of like keeping that these are wild animals. We are respecting their space, so you'll never see us like coddling or like, doing any like physical interaction with the animals. That's just one way. That's like a very passive way of like passing on that these are wild animals. Number two is, I think one of the more primary ways that we do it is talking to people about how important these wild animals are for their ecosystems and the roles that they play in their ecosystems is one of the ways that I have seen that connection really happen for people to make that connection in their brain. So these animals play incredibly important roles in their ecosystems. Without them in the ecosystems, here are all the other things that get thrown out of balance. That is kind of a way without like directly saying, don't keep a turtle at home. You could say, actually, these turtles are really, really important to have out in these ecosystems because they play these roles. And then here's 3 ways that you can go possibly find and see these animals out in their ecosystems where they're carrying out those really important roles. So we do a lot of as much education about species as we do about their habitats. That's also a really cool thing that, that we've also like people always ask like how can I see a screech owl, talking and educating about their habitats, those roles they play in their habitats, and then passing on some of that. Here are 2-3 ways or habitats that you can look for to be able to observe those animals from a distance out in their habitats as they're playing out those roles, which is a much better holistic way of appreciating and seeing those animals than having them at home. That's just something that we do kind of through our education, which has seemed to work pretty well. That and me just telling people, don't get a turtle.
Don't do it. Yeah. I was going to say, like, you can normally look at the parents at that point and go, this is a generational pet that you'll be passing on to your grandchildren's children. And at that point, then they're like, yeah, no, I don't. So it's important to and it's difficult sometimes, isn't it? Because you want to keep their enthusiasm about it, but you don't want to shut down everything that they do. But through, as Bob said, through role modeling our interactions with our ambassadors, that we hope that they learn from that as well. That was a great question. Thank you. Any others? Oh, Craig, I think you're on mute, my friend. Oh, Craig, I think you were just talking, but no, okay. If anybody does want to put their hand up, they're more than welcome to. Just want to make sure they can see everybody, or they can just chat again. Absolutely, please. Yep, just chime in.
Sorry, one more question.
Of course.
With some of our ambassador animals as well, they do have physical disabilities. And I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how to talk about those physical disabilities. Specifically, our wood turtle got into an accident with some farming equipment and is missing 1.5 of his back legs. So I was just wondering how you would talk about physical disabilities.
So we actually, yeah, we've got 1 or 2 ambassadors with varying needs. So I don't class that as a disability. I don't think there is, a disability as such. It's just something that you can adapt to and develop a new skill from, which is super cool. So I think the important thing is to focus on the positives in that situation for that creature. For example, we have a friend named George who's a wood turtle that lives with us, and he has got 2 nubs at the front. And my thing to people is letting them know that he's built like an Italian sports car. He's all rear wheel drive. He is probably one of the fastest animals that we work with, because we take for granted, or we assume, and we've made that thing already, that he can't move around as much. So I think the important thing there is focusing on how they've adapted, how they have thrived in a situation that hasn't been necessarily straightforward with them. And I think focusing on their resilience is a huge asset that we can all learn a little bit from as well. I think it's very easy in today's society, when faced with a shortcoming or something that has affected you, that you can either rise from it and help educate around it and learn, or you can retreat into your shell. And sorry for that pun there, but it was just a low-hanging fruit. But I think the cool thing is that you have that power, right, Annika? You have that power to steer that conversation and actually be like, no, I don't actually see that as a
meeting.
Oh, Connie, I think you're unmuted still.
Okay, I'll mute myself.
No,
right.
you're okay. I get it. I was probably an animal running across the couch, right? Or a small child
Yep.
with it. Yep. So the interesting thing there is really kind of focusing on what positives that individual animal has brought and what you've noticed all about it. And asking the kids to notice that as well. Because if they're looking at it through the lens of identifying what is amazing, then they're not going to worry about something that they can't do. I don't think I've ever been around a group of kids when they're playing that have said, oh, you can't do this, when they've got no expectation of what play is. I think that's the wonderful thing about education, and what we as educators get to do is kind of focus on those good things. So I would say definitely you can talk about their story, though. I don't think hiding from the injury itself is something you should do. But I think there's a way to discuss it in a way that is encouraging and empowering. So I think that is probably how I would balance that out. Hopefully that answers that question for you a little bit. Awesome. Yes, Connie.
Hi, so I've done the Project Wild workshops here in New Hampshire. But I don't think that they're doing them here anymore. Do you guys offer training for teachers at your facility?
So I do offer training, yeah. So I will double check with Laura, who is kind of like the Project Wild for Maine coordinator. I'm one of her facilitators. So what I can do is, if you wanted to email us at education@thecenterforwildlife.org, and we can look into that for you, and I'd be able to provide that. Annika and Caroline, it might be something that's interesting for you as well to have as a string to your bow, so you could run some of those activities. Craig, I see your question. How are we funded, and is there a charge for our visit? So that answer goes hand in hand. So we're not actually funded by any government entities. We are funded by our outreach programs and our generous donor base and grant applications. So we have a very, very dedicated team in development that help work with different foundations to provide opportunities. In fact, a lot of our educational opportunities are possible through those grants, where we're able to go out to memory care centers or have groups come in at a free charge, or we cover their transport. And there is a charge per visit. Now, it's a $10 per person visit. And all of that goes directly back into the organization and making sure that the ambassadors and the clinic have what they need. Although you can do memberships. If you get a membership, you can join, you can come in as many times as you want for free. That's definitely something there. We also work with groups as well on pricing. If you're coming in with a large group, or you want to do like a private tour where it is you and an educator and you can pick their brains as much as you want, we have those. I would definitely say check out our website, and I'll pop it in the chat below just so people can visit it, as it kind of gives a lovely overview for everything that we've got. Making sure I spell center the American way and not the way that I've been spelling it for the last 32 years. Let's see, centerforwildlife.org. There we go. Great, thank you for that question, Oak Creek. Absolutely, we love having people come and visit us, and our open hours to the public or online. We're open to animals all day, every day. And I think we have enough time for one or two more questions. And if not, that actually brings us to 5 minutes past. So my apologies, Titus. But I think it was really fun to have this conversation, and also to meet a load of like-minded people across the state, which is super cool. As always, Titus will probably have her closing comments now, but I wanted to know from the Center for Wildlife, from myself, Bob, and Lucy, that we really enjoy speaking with people and meeting people who share that passion for the outdoors and looking to bring that to people. So if after the fact you'd like to pick our brains a bit more or find out about our programming options, feel free to get in touch with us through the website. Once again, we look forward to welcoming you all here in some capacity in the future.
Does not impact Title I, IDA, or other.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I had inserted the contact hour certificate as well as the survey for today's presentation. For the contact, just click on the link and fill in your name for your certificate, contact hour, and then the survey, so that helps guide and help us tailor our presentations going forward. Thank you again so much for your time. We'll be sharing a PDF of today's presentation with you tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, we will also have all the contact details in there for you as well. Again, thank you guys for ensuring that we expand opportunity and access for our students in all spaces. Have a good day.